What is that I hear in the distance, you might ask? The sounds of wings fluttering, the sounds of women screaming, the sounds of axes cutting through flesh. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally being introduced to the left arm of the former king of the pirates himself, Scopper Gaban, the man known throughout the world of many different names and titles, the former wings of the pirate king, the mountain eater himself, but the epithet that he loves beyond all others, the one he lives up to the most because he boned himself a giant, the preacher of love. That's right, Scopper Gaban has finally been introduced. But no, in all seriousness, the Mountain Eater, what are we all thinking of that name? The first time I heard it, I'm thinking, that sounds so badass. That is one of the coolest epithets I think I've heard, not just in One Piece, but in anime in general. Doflamingo has a really good one, the Heavenly Demon. But the Mountain Eater, I absolutely love it. But then it doesn't sit well with me because we have Gold Roger, the king of the pirates, the pirate king. We have Silver's Rayleigh, the Dark King. And then we have Scopper Gaban, the Mountain Eater. Shouldn't it be the Mountain King? Doesn't that, doesn't the symbolism there fit more nicely? We have gold, silver, not bronze, but, copper essentially. And then king, and eater? But I suppose it fits Scopper Gaban's character quite nicely. He's too rough around the edges. He's too much of a rogue to, be referred to in such a kingly manner. He's as much of a brute as you can get while still calling yourself the preacher of love. But if you're keeping up to date with the manga, and if you're not, you should know this video is going to have spoilers. We got introduced to Scopper. Now, of course, we've seen him before in the series, but this is the first time we've seen him in present-day One Piece. And boy, what an introduction was it. The race was always between two people, Shiki and Scopper Gaban, who was that mysterious silhouette. And it was Scopper Gaban, and I think it fits more nicely. Time's running out for Shiki to appear. There's the man marked by flames. I know some people speculate that might be Shiki. I don't think it would be. It says the man marked by flames sails in a ship as dark as night and whirlpools follow around him. I could see Shiki using his power potentially to create those whirlpools. But why wouldn't he just be flying up in the air? Obviously, the man marked by flames doesn't want to be found, and if it was Shiki, just get yourself up in the sky, mate. I don't think that is going to be Shiki, and if he hasn't shown up here, I don't know if we're going to see him in the main canon storyline of One Piece. Let me know down in the comments, though, what you guys think Shiki's role will be in the story, if he even has a role. But we got introduced to Scopper Gaban. I'm probably going to butcher Gaban. I've seen a few different pronunciations of it, and I change my wordage on it depending on, if I'm being silly and hyper in the beginning of it. I feel like my pronunciation of it is different than when I'm being more serious, so it's probably going to change throughout the video. I might even just call him Scopper, because Scopper is such a fun word to say. But we got introduced to him about 14 chapters ago, I want to say. We see Luffy and Zoro and Nami in the castle looking for the key for Loki's Sea Prism chains. And then this old geezer appears. And what does he do? He riles Luffy up like no other. He grabs the key and he tells Luffy, well, if you want to free Loki, you need to come and get it. And Luffy's just like, enough, old man, just give me the key. And we see Luffy proceed to try and grab it from him. in the beginning it looks like he's just, he's not taking it seriously, and Scopper is dancing and weaving around him, not letting Luffy even touch it. And, he's taunting Luffy like, is this all you've got? I thought you were an emperor. And Luffy gets pissed, and I like to think that, because there's like a bunch of steam blowing off him, I like to think he goes gear second kind of gum Gatling slash grab, and he's trying to grab it, and Scopper Gaban's observation haki is too great, where he's just weaving through all of them, and Luffy doesn't even get a lick in to touch it. And then out of nowhere, Scopper appears before him, the giant key, because of course this key is for Loki's chains. Loki's bigger than your average giant. He's got this massive key, and the flat handle on the back of it, it's like an old-fashioned, rusted-looking key. And he grabs it, and he slams the flat of it down on Luffy. He had used armament haki on it, and he smashed Luffy into the ground. And that's when Zoro and Nami are like, shit, this isn't just some old dude. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. But Scopper Gaban's, he's a rascal, I want to say. He's a jokester, he's a prankster. He even has a line here where, I love trouble as long as I'm not the one causing it. He's like that type of person that would probably really piss you off in real life. But he's just having a good time of it all, and he doesn't want them to know who he is. He's saying to Roto, just don't you dare open your mouth. You saw what Gerd did to you, I will do it 10 times worse. Shut up. And he keeps his identity a secret until we see him later on in the Elbaph arc. But it was a good first look on who Scopper is, because of course we've seen him in the past and in flashbacks, but he always played second fiddle to Rayleigh, to Roger, even to Kazuki Oden and Whitebeard. We didn't really get any sort of insight onto his personality. It's not surprising where Oda has gone with this, and I don't even think this is bragging, because I think this is a very obvious conclusion that a lot of people came to. But he's very, very reminiscent to Sanji. He has a rivalry with Rayleigh. We see in the most recent chapter, I believe it was, if it wasn't the most recent, the second most recent, where Scopper Gaban is injured. He's fatally wounded, and we'll get to that a little bit later when we kind of discuss his powers. But I can't remember how it's worded. I think one of them says, "Oh my God, that's Scopper Gaban. He was the third most powerful in the Roger Pirates," and the man is half dead, more than half dead. He's a geezer as well, so I don't think he's surviving this arc, but he's fatally wounded, and he still has the strength to be like, no, Mosshead, I was the second one, essentially. Literally, you could see Sanji's visage in Scopper Gaban, in his die-hard exasperation that he is the second most powerful in the crew. And so not only does Scopper Gaban have that rivalry with, the other right hand, the other wing of who will become the Pirate King, but he also has Sanji's pervertedness. Like I was getting in the intro about him being, having the ladies scream, being called the Preacher of Love. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds very a word I can't say on YouTube. But he seems harmless enough. Scopper Gaban is very braggadocious, I guess you could say, very willing to admit that he knocked up a giant, which I find very, very funny. He takes a lot of pride in it, and who wouldn't? I'm completely blanking on her name, Ripley. They're not married in the traditional sense. They're kind of, most Western countries have the law, the policy. If you live with a woman for In Australia, it's 2 years. I think it varies in other countries. If you live with a woman for that amount of time, you're de factoly married. All of the kind of responsibilities that come with marriage without being married, essentially. It's a little bit more complicated, but in layman's terms, that's what it is. And that's what he is with Ripley. I think it's mutual. They both don't want to get married because their relationship is so unique. He's She's older than him, and he's just going to continuously get older and older in terms of appearances and what he can do. Because, of course, Ripley is a giant, and the general rule of thumb is that giants age about 3 times as slowly as humans. But that also throws into question, for instance, his Scopper Gaban's son is called Colin. It's kind of written as colon. Awful name, just absolutely dreadful. How can someone as cool as the name of Scopper, of course that's not his first name, but let's go with it, and Ripley create a child called Colin? Colon. It's no, just no. He's also proving himself to be a little bit of a nuisance, that kid, and we'll touch on that very briefly later on. But his son is 20 years in terms of human years, but in terms of giant years, that's about 6 or 7. So I think Ripley is said to be 80, so she would be, let's ruin my maths here, about like 23, 20, 26, 27, something along those lines in human years if they're aging 3 times slower. But the aging process is weird because she doesn't really give off the energy of someone who would be their like early to mid 20s. She definitely gives off energy of someone who is older than that. But technically speaking, Scopper Gaban, his age is never actually confirmed, but we know Rayleigh is 78, I believe, and he'd be very equivalent, so he'd be late 70s, early 80s. Just picked himself up a babe probably 4 times younger than him. So, well done, Scopper. I bet you this is Sanji's dream. If he carries on living the way Scopper Gaban did or is, that he will, in 60 years' time, bag himself maybe a giant mermaid princess. But Sanji has a multitude of different love interests that people like to pair him with. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked right now. Scopper Gaban nails Luffy with the key, sends him packing, and shows that, this is a threat. This is something that needs to be dealt with. And it progresses because Luffy, he's taking it seriously now. And then Scopper whips out a technique. I think it's called 80. The English name is hold on, I wrote it down. Where are we? The Yaso Takuru. Don't know if I think I'm pronouncing that right. 80 tribal leaders, it's called. He essentially gets both his axes, which we'll get into a second, and he swings them. It's unclear whether or not he's wildly swinging them or if it's just one swing of the dual axes and just massive air gust blades just shoot out. And Zoro immediately sees this and being the slashing expert, if you want to say that, immediately knows how dangerous this is. Luffy does as well. His eyes are popping shit, this is going to do serious damage, if not kill me. And Zoro gets in the way quick enough to block it, instantly earning Scopper Gaban's respect. And Luffy and Zoro jump out of the rubble. Luffy is in gear 5th. He immediately recognizes the danger that this man presents. And they go to attack him, and we see an epic battle for the ages. The 3 of them tear down the castle. Elbaph is barely left standing. No, what really happens? Scopper Gaban chucks the axes down. I quit. I forfeit. I give up. Don't hurt me. And he plays it off so casually that completely showing the opposite of how serious and tense everyone else in the room is. And I just love that type of energy that he's coming with. It's very refreshing. I really like Silver's Rayleigh, but the dichotomy between someone more light-hearted and unserious, at least when he wants to be, to the more serious-natured Rayleigh, they would have been playing off each other very well. It is Sanji and Zoro, and that the relationship between those two, it brings about some of the funniest moments in One Piece. But we see him do the Yaso Takuru technique, and we see, this is why he was a former left hand of the Pirate King. Like, he's incredibly powerful, even in his old age. But as I was saying, he kind of just pisses off after that. He's just like, if Elbaph's still standing after all this, if you guys haven't destroyed it, come see me and we'll have a chat. I'm looking forward to seeing what he tells Luffy. Is it going to be a new Haki technique? Is it going to be a way to injure the immortal God's Knights and Gorosei? Spoiler alert. Or is it going to be something else entirely? Something about Laugh Tale or the last road poneglyph? But before we kind of touch more on his powers, like I said, I'm not going to... This video is more about Scopper Gaban in Elbaph. There's really no point discussing anything that we know before that, because all we do is see him in scenes where the other characters were the spotlight. I would just be wasting everyone's time going over, and then he was in Fishman Island, and then he was in Skypiea, and he saw Kazuki Oden, and he wanted to fight him, but Roger got in the way, blah, 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 blah. We don't need to know this. It's in Elbaph where we see just who Scopper Gaban is. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of what he does in Elbaph, like what type of assistance that he gives our main heroes, we need to stop here and talk about how cool is it that he uses two hand axes as weapons. Other than in like a few characters in Vinland Saga that like the side characters that barely show it, I don't ever see anyone. There was a few characters in the TV show Vikings that did it, but you never see in anime people just whip out two hand axes. You obviously have people like Escanor from Seven Deadly Sins, and you have people like Sentomaru in One Piece. Who else do we have? There's a weird character, but Tauros in Fairy Tail. Were there any Bleach Zanpakutos with axes? I don't actually... We have Baragon as Sparta number 2 that had like a big war-like axe. But just the two hand axes, we just don't really see that in fiction. And Scopper Gaban looks so cool with it all. It's actually a little bit sad that he's been the one given them, because he's not going to be in the story much. I would love to see more scenes with someone with it, because it's such an interesting weapon. We need to see more things like clubs and axes and war hammers and things that aren't just your traditional swords, because that's done to death. So I really like seeing the twin axe displays from Scopper Gaban. Scopper Gaban. If he was in our world, Scopper would definitely be hitting the bong. But it's really cool seeing him wield the two axes and just how proficient he is with them. But the main thing that Scopper brings us in the Elbaph arc is that he shows us that it's possible to injure the God's Knights. Now, it's not lasting damage and it's not fatal damage, but he injures them enough where regeneration becomes... It takes longer than it usually would to heal wounds. And we see this because Saint Shepherd Summers, one of the God's Knights, the man that wields the thorn fruit, and if you guys are interested in him, I think that might be my next video that I do. I'm also going to do one on Killingham, I'm going to do one on Gunko, but I'm going to separate that between Devil Fruit and character, because she's just got a lot going on. I'm she might be my favorite character in this arc. Her or Loki. It's a toss up. But Summers is just he's being a demon. He's just going to town on everyone. Soul was helpless against him. Robin did a little bit. She showed some versatility in trying to distance Summers from the children, the kidnapped children that the God's Knight had taken away. But it didn't do anything. It didn't even slow him down. I mean, the man was a bowler. He literally still was doing his countdown as he was falling to his death in quotation marks. But we see Summers pop back up. He restricts Robin. He brings thorns around her. She's trapped, and it looks pretty hopeless. Like, other than Luffy coming in, like, who's gonna stop anyone? Who's gonna stop this monster? And then out of nowhere, in the beginning of this chapter, which, what I'm describing is happening, we see a map, and we see where Scopper Gaban is, and the distance that he's covered in this short amount of time is crazy. He just appears out of nowhere. We see Saint Summers. He's going on an epilogue, his not master plan, but taking joy in the fact that, the children are going to be kidnapped and potentially die, and, all the evil stuff that makes the God's Knight so compelling to watch. But he's going on about it, and then he looks down at his arm, and he can't believe what's happened because it's been sliced off. And he's looking at it in bewilderment. It's like, why have my powers stopped working? Why is this not regenerating? And then before he can even process that anymore, he gets cut apart. Well, not cut apart, that's happening. He gets his chest sliced open, and in the pain of it all, he looks up and he sees Scopper Gaban. And I swear, Saint Summers, he was petrified so much that his great-great-grandchildren are still going to be experiencing it. Because he looks up in just utter terror of the man that's standing before him, and he recognizes him instantly as the left arm of the former Pirate King, one of the wings of Gold D. Roger, Scopper Gaban, the Mountain Eater. So he looks up at Gaban terrified, and this isn't just reputation fear. Like, he's encountered Scopper Gaban before. Where? Probably at God's Valley. But I would put good money on the fact that the Roger Pirates encountered the God's Knights more than just once. So he may have even encountered Scopper Gaban more than once. But he sees him, he's getting all the PTSD, he's panicking, and he demonstrates a technique. I think it's something like... In fact, I actually think I have this written down as well. Let me check my notes. Checking the notes. The Hell of the Crimson Lotus. Can you tell I've got a video planned on him? I actually really like it. It's attack from the air and the earth. He brings up thorn spikes from the ground to pierce someone, and then fires off vines of briars of thorns from the air, essentially making your target jump and then skewer them. But this is Scopper Gaban. He didn't earn the reputation as a mountain eater. He got that reputation because the vegetation on the mountain that Roger was injured on while being attacked by hundreds and hundreds of pirates, Scopper Gaban protected him all by himself, and by the end of it, every single sign of vegetation on the mountain was dismantled, dismembered. Can a tree be dismembered? Torn apart, and it was left as a barren landscape, and that is why he is referred to as the Mountain Eater. And goddamn Summers is chucking thorns at him. Like, who does he think this is? And Scopper Gaban uses a technique called Futen Raku, the Axe Heaven Music. He only has one axe at the moment. The other one he got separated from before the fight even began. He charges it up with Conqueror's Haki. He goes by, he slices through the thorns, which is a very impressive feat. We haven't seen anyone be able to even dent them. And he comes down, and he doesn't just slice someone's chest open. It's not a Mihawk cutting down Zoro in the Baratie. He literally, it's not even decapitating him. bifiscurated. I completely butchered that. Not the one that gets cut down the middle, but the one that gets cut in half, because he essentially gets cut in half from the chest up. Or does that just fall under decapitation? Philosophical question for you all. Leave it down in the comments. But he slices him in half from the chest up, and he has this badass stance finishing the swing. And Summers is out of commission for a while. They can instantly regenerate, so even being out for a few seconds is like a great feat. But Summers is out of it for quite a while. We don't see him until I think 2 or 3 chapters later. At least we don't see him being up and about, continuing on his God's Night duties. But then after taking down Scopper Gaban, he races to take down Gunko. And as he's doing it, his son, Mr. Colin, God, I'm wanting to say one as a joke, and I'm completely getting it wrong by saying the right name. All right, we'll get rid of this gimmick. He charges at Gunko, and his son Colin sees him, and he's so thankful and relieved to see his dad. You can imagine how much fear just kind of seeps out of his body at the appearance of not just at his dad, but like such a strong warrior. He knows that he's going to be protected, so he's comfortable enough to scream out, "Dad, that's my dad. You can't beat him. He's the strongest warrior ever." Gunko hears that, uses her arrow powers to fast travel essentially to Colin and take him hostage. And we see Gaban's eternal monologue being like, "Colin, please don't say it. Just don't say it. I can deal with this situation. I can beat her. I can beat all 3 of these God's Knights, but you just need to keep your mouth shut." But he can't do it. And I know a lot of people are annoyed at him, getting a little bit of the Momonosuke vibes from way back when. But that's the thing. He's just a kid that is relieved to see his dad in a hostage situation. If we're being realistic about this, Oda has no choice but to write it like this. This is how a kid would react in this situation, as someone who has kids themselves. Like, the relief that a kid is going to feel in that situation, I don't blame him for, calling out to his dad. Scopper sees this, he still has faith in himself, I'm going to do it. I'm going to protect Elbaph. This is the land that my wife lives in. This is where my son is being raised. I am not going to let you burn down the culture of this land, the history of this land. And he goes to take down Gunko, probably using the same Futenraku technique that he used to take down Summers. He goes, but he gets his future observation haki kicks in, and he realizes he's not going to make it in time. So what does he do? He mirrors what he did with Zoro and Luffy. Probably implying that Zuffy, all those people out there shipping Luffy and Zoro, just gave you the ship name there. But he charges up, he immediately sees it, he throws his arms up, drops his axe, "I surrender." I did just get sidetracked there. Do we think that means that he saw Zuffy be too much and that they were going to beat him, and that's why he chucked his hands up, because he had already seen how this fight would go? We don't even know how great his future sight could be. Maybe he even sees like much longer than anyone else. Maybe he saw a full fight kind of, transpire, and it's like, I'm not going to be able to beat these guys, so I don't want to get hurt. I give up. That could him, or it could just be him being, I'm sick of this. I want to go get drunk and, go bad my hot giant wife. But either way, he puts his hands up, he surrenders for the sake of his son. Gunko sees this and, she takes him down mercilessly. She, makes fun of him for being, this is why you human scum are nothing like us gods. This is why you will never beat us. And she impales him with her arrow fruit. Arrows just pierce Scopper Gaban through the midsection, and then she throws him off Elbaph into the underworld. Chopper has a really good scene because he's seen that Scopper can injure these immortal freak god knights, and he needs to know how that's done. So he jumps off of Elbaph to try and save him. And spoiler alert, the whole video is a spoiler, but anyway, poor choice of words on my part. Chopper ends up, saving him. I forget what's the point they uses where he gets all fluffed up. And he kind of runs on air a little bit like a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Heavy point, no, it's not heavy point. Guard point, and he saves Scopper Gaban, but he's been so heavily injured, like he's been pierced through the midsection. I think this is the end for him. He'll probably get up and do probably one more thing, whether or not that's helping Luffy out in some way. But I don't see him getting out of this arc alive. And you see, Rayleigh apparently doesn't even know where the rest of the crew is, so he might not even know what's happening. But I'd love to see his reaction to Scopper's passing, because that's going to be so. In some ways, that's going to be more meaningful than his reaction to Roger passing, because Roger and him, like, they were best friends. They were captain and vice captain. There was a level of trust there, like with Luffy and Zoro, that just can't be matched. But with Sanji, and in this case, with Rayleigh and Scopper, they had a rivalry. It wasn't as pure, I guess you could say, as his relationship with Roger. So to get his true emotions of someone, they of course are friends and comrades, but they would have been having the pretense that they were enemies, like, I hate you, stupid Gaban, blah, 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 blah. So to see his, heartfelt, like, emotions over what happens to a close friend of his, someone that he used to call a rival, the only other man that can stand toe-to-toe with him, the only man in the world that could have helped him make Roger the Pirate King. I really, really want to see Rayleigh's emotions in it all. I think that would be really, really powerful. I'll end this out with, we get a funny scene where he mentions that Zoro has Conqueror's Haki. Yeah, Zoro's the last one in the room to know. Even Luffy's like, yeah, I know you have Conqueror's Haki. I've been sensing it. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't know you have Conqueror's Haki? Can't you just feel the energy coming off you? Luffy also demonstrated that he felt Chopper fall off Elbaph. The upper realms of Elbaph. So his observation haki, or in this case the voice of all things, is getting really powerful. I'm interested to see where that goes. But he says to Zoro, yeah, you have Conqueror's Haki. Luffy isn't the only conqueror on your crew. You need to learn to master it, because he needs this power to fight the God's Knights. And Sanji mentions, do I have Conqueror's Haki? I surely have Conqueror's Haki. Tell me I have Conqueror's Haki. But we see Scopper Gaban whispering something to Sanji, and that's kind of where it's left off. We don't know any more information after that. I reckon Sanji will have Conqueror's Haki, but I think I might make a whole video on that. It doesn't make much sense for me why he wouldn't. We already have seen how much Oda loves to mirror and mimic the different generations of the Roger Pirates and the Straw Hat Pirates, so I'm nearly positive that he will have it. But that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about the Mountain Eater himself, the Giant Eater, if you want to call him that. The Preacher of Love, one of the wings of the Pirate King, Scopper Gaban. I reckon we'll see him do one more thing. I might make a short video on it, or I might include that in another video. We'll see how it goes. Probably not going to be doing chapter reviews anymore until... Well, I shouldn't say until. No, you know what? Let's go until. Let's keep the confidence up. If this channel starts kicking off more and more people are interested in it, I'll start doing chapter reviews again. Did them a little bit, but they weren't gaining much traction at all. And my content seemed to be taken better when it's more of a video dedicated to subjects. So after each new chapter that comes out, I'm trying to upload daily. So I'll try to do videos on the certain things that happen, and we can go through the chapters together that way. But guys, I've been Jack Cypher. I think I might have to change my moniker though. Mountain Eater. Jack the Mountain Eater. What do you reckon? Does it work? Let me know. But everyone... nearly just destroyed my desk there. Mountain Eater, more like Desk Smasher. But I've been Jack Cypher. Have a lovely night, guys. Cypher out.